Does your license need saving? Do the wise thing. Call Wise Man Lawyers. Does your license need saving? Do the wise thing. Call Wise Man Lawyers. Don't face that court alone. Let the Wise Man team get you back on the road. Does your license need saving? Do the wise thing. Call the Wise Man team at Wise Man Lawyers.
Alright, today I was at Brisbane Magistrates Court. Basically the client, two things. He received a infringement notice for exceeding the speed limit by more than 40 kilometres per hour. So the speed limit was X and he's been caught exceeding it by more than 40 kilometres per hour. That's triggered two things: a 6-month Queensland Transport high-speed suspension, but it's also triggered 8 demerit points. At the time, he was on what's called a good driving behaviour period, so I'll just step to the side for a moment. If you run out of points, you will get a letter from Queensland Transport saying choose between a 3-month suspension or what's called a 12-month good driving behaviour period. If you elect that, basically you're given a bonus 2 points the last 12 months. And if you lose those 2 points, you'll get a 6-month demerit point suspension. So I'll go back to the high speed. So he's been done exceeding the speed limit by more than 40 kilometres per hour. That's triggered a high speed suspension for 6 months, as well as he's been given 8 demerit points. Those 8 demerit points have breached the 2-point good driving behaviour period. So remember, he was on a 12-month good driving behaviour period. He had 2 points, and if you lose those 2 points, you get a 6-month demerit point suspension. So those 8 points have breached that. So in addition to the 6-month high-speed suspension, he's also received a 6-month demerit point suspension. So he's got 2 suspension notices. Now, what we needed to do was check whether he'd lost his licence in the last 5 years, which he hadn't. We then needed to get the 2 suspensions to align. So the way it worked was, from memory, the demerit point suspension started on date X, and the high-speed one wasn't due to start until about 3 weeks later. So what we had to do was get Queensland Transport to bring the second suspension forward so it lined up with the demerit point suspension. We then needed to apply for what's called a special hardship licence for both suspensions. With a special hardship licence, what you do is you apply to the court for an order allowing you to continue driving for work purposes only during the suspension. And keep in mind, we had 2 suspensions. We had to get them to line up, and then we had to apply for an order which jointly covered both suspensions, allowing the client to drive for work purposes. What a lot of people do, and either they self-represent or they get a lawyer that doesn't specialise in traffic law, they'll apply for the high-speed suspension licence, but not for the other licence. Or, going back a step, hypothetically, if my client wasn't on a good driving behaviour period, but he ran out of points and he got the notice to choose for the good driving behaviour period, had the person not have elected the good driving behaviour period, they would have gone to court and they would have been successful on, or not successful, but they would have been eligible to apply for the high speed suspension. But then the court would have said, but because you didn't elect the good driving behaviour period and you got the 3-month demerit point suspension, that makes you ineligible to apply for the high speed suspension, and you therefore can't be granted it. So anyway, my client got the high speed suspension, and because he breached the good driving behaviour period, the demerit point suspension, we needed to make them line up, apply for an order that overlaps both of them, and take it from there. Now, it's generally hard enough to convince a magistrate that someone who's exceeded the speed limit by more than 40 kilometres per hour is a fit and proper person to be granted a special hardship licence, and it's even harder if they've already run out of points, they've already elected the good driving behaviour period, and they've breached the good driving behaviour period with a 8-point high-speed offence. So needless to say, I had my work cut out for me. The way it works is I need to draft about an 8-page affidavit up for you to sign, talking about income, expenses, family situation, difficulties you'll suffer while you're off the road, what happened in the day in question, what you've learned and the steps you've taken to educate yourself and convince the court that it is out of character and that you won't do it again. If you're employed, I need to do a 4-page affidavit up for your boss to sign, saying what you do, why you need your licence to do it, and the fact that you will lose your job if you lose your licence. If you're self-employed, I don't need the second affidavit, but I do need to embed your business's profit and loss into the affidavit materials. That all gets drafted, filed with the court on the first day suspension. It gets served on Queensland Transport. The court will give you a court date, and then Queensland Transport will reinstate your licence until midnight on the day before the court date. So my client was able to drive right up to the court date, being today, so able to drive up until midnight last night. So basically the suspensions are paused until midnight the day before the court date. So we went to court. The first thing Queensland Transport said to me, so basically when you go to the courtroom, it's like you're suing Queensland Transport. So, I mean, we're not suing anyone, but in layman's terms, Queensland Transport said they want to take my client's licence off them, so we're suing them to try and stop them from doing that. So a representative from Queensland Transport goes to court, and then a representative of the client, being me, goes to court with the client, and it's our application trying to stop Queensland Transport from suspending my client's licence. So I met with the Queensland Transport representative before court, and he stated in no uncertain terms that they are strongly opposing the application, and rightly so. You know, they'd be remiss not to. Again, high speed infringement during a good driving behaviour period. I would have been surprised if Queensland Transport didn't oppose it, and this particular representative did more than oppose it. He was quite vigorous in his submissions as to why my client should not be successful and not be given a special hardship licence today. As a part of preparing, I got my client to do a reformatory course talking about road fatalities, and the courses that I send my clients to have got road accident victims or the loved ones of persons who have unfortunately passed on the road, and it's a real eye-opener. It's not just an attendance course. My clients are often telling me that they're brought to tears at these seminars. I talk in the affidavit about what my client learnt, and obviously they get a certificate that I attended the court. I got my client to get character references speaking about him as a person, and the fact that notwithstanding he's a fit and proper person. Now, as a starting point, the circumstances that I've already discussed sound terrible, and they sound like someone who should not be given a special hardship licence. But if you can step back a minute and just look at the whole picture, his driving history up until about 2 years ago was pretty good. I won't say it was excellent, but it was average. There was nothing particularly concerning in it. But his marriage has failed, midlife crisis, bought a motorbike, and in quick succession racked up points and obviously this high-speed offence. So he has since sold his motorbike. There's been no offending since. So basically my angle when I was making my verbal submissions at court today was that, that window of behaviour was out of line, but when compared to his traffic history as a whole and his circumstances, my submission was that the magistrate would be appropriate in considering that window of offending to be out of character compared to his history as a whole. Look, it was hard yakka. Queensland Transport got up and vigorously opposed the application, made pretty substantive submissions as to why my client was not a fit and proper person to be given a second chance. But then I've got up and obviously made my submissions. I relied heavily upon what was contained in the affidavit materials. As a starting point, if there's anything of substance that you want to say to the magistrate, it needs to be in your affidavit, and everything was. But I just had to emphasise those points. I spoke at length about, the fact that, again, it was out of character compared to his history as a whole, the fact that he hasn't offended since, the fact that he's done the course that I've referred to, and I got my client to speak in the affidavit that I drafted about, the lessons that he's learned from this whole affair. It was hard work, but the short answer is I was successful in persuading the magistrate that my client was a fit and proper person. It was obviously borderline. It took a lot of hard work on my part to persuade the magistrate, but the short version is they were ultimately satisfied that my client was a fit and proper person and that they did deserve to be granted their special hardship licence. So the way it works now is he was given the order, which is a piece of paper just formalising the words that come out of the magistrate's mouth. He takes that to Queensland Transport. Basically, he'll be given his licence back with the hardship licence condition, and for the next 6 months he can continue to drive for work purposes only, but that said, for work, when it comes to work, it's literally as if he hasn't lost his licence. He can't, you know, access his son who he shares custody of. He needs to catch taxis or buses for that. But as far as getting to and from work and job sites and continuing on with earning an income, no change. So the hours that we asked for from memory was like 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday. So during those hours, no change. He can continue to drive for work purposes only. Obviously, he's not going to lose his job. He's clearly relieved, given it was such a touch and go case. I'm Andrew Wiseman. Thanks for watching. Hi, I'm Andrew Wiseman from Wiseman Lawyers, Queensland's only truly dedicated drug, alcohol and traffic offence law firm. If you face loss of licence, loss of vehicle imprisonment or anything in between at any court in Queensland, we can and will help you today. This is our specialty. This is all we do. Give us a call, 1300 947 352. I look forward to helping you resolve your issue today.
Don't face that court alone. Let the wise man team get you back on the road.